Hello student, welcome to the course of Information and Network Security. I hope that you have watched my previous video related to information and network security. In today's lecture, we are going to study about principle of security. What do you understand by the word principle of security? Means it is a basic guidelines that needs to be followed. If you are going to have organization, you need to secure your data. So this principle of security should be achieved. So what are these principle of security? What is the meaning of it? And when, at what condition it has been lost? That we will study in our lecture. First is the confidentiality. What do you understand by the word confidentiality? This principle specifies that only the sender and the intended recipient should be able to access the content of the message. Only the sender and the intended recipient should be able to get the content of the message. If the message is being accessible to third party, then you can say that confidentiality is lost. So you need to protect the data where it is being stored. Also, once the data is sent via some transmission line, you need to conceal the data. So that is the principle of confidentiality, that only the intended entity should be able to get the content of the message, and interception cause loss of message confidentiality. If the unauthorized person is able to access the message, then you can say that your message confidentiality is lost. For example, over here, a message is sent from the sender A to the recipient B, and the intruder C is going to get the content of the message. So over here, there is a loss of confidentiality. Interception causes loss of message confidentiality. I hope that you understood. What do you understand by the word confidentiality? Means only this intended sender and recipient should get the content of the message. If the content of the message is accessible to the third party, then you can say that the confidentiality is lost. Next is the message integrity. What do you understand by the integrity? Over here, integrity means whatever changes that are done on the data, it only needs to be done by the authorized entity and through the authorized mechanism. If the content of the message are changed after the sender sent it, but before it is been received by the intended recipient, then you can say that integrity of message is lost. How the integrity of message can be lost? With the help of unauthorized access, with the help of modification. So, if the content is been changed, so modification makes the change in the content. So you can say modification causes loss of message integrity. Modification causes loss of message integrity. So in this diagram, you can see that A is going to send the data that transfer $100 into D. So the actual route of the message, ideal route was this, but this intruder is going to change the content. It is going to change the content from $100 to $1,000. This sender was sending to D, but this intruder made the intentional changes, that is $100, and to C. So this receiver B, or you can say bank B, will think that it is received from the A to transfer to C, so it will do that amount of excuse. So A will, okay. So what A was sending, that transfer 100 to D, but before it is received by the receiver, the content was changed by the intruder C. Some third party is going to make the changes before it is been received by the receiver. So that is a modification. So over here you can say modification causes loss of message integrity. Next is the availability. What does the principle of availability state? It states that resource should be available to the authorized party all the time. Whatever resource is there, if some entity is going to um, access the resources for a bank, then that information should be available at every time. Information is useless if it is not available. If you are having ample amount of information notes in your laptop and it is not available during exam time, for example, so it is the information is useless. So the situation can be difficult for a bank if the customer is not able to access their account for transaction. So this principle says that resource should be available to the authorized party all the time. So A wants to access the server B, but because of some interruption, A is not going able to access the B. Is not able to connect to B. So you can say that is the interruption puts the availability of the resource in danger. So confidentiality, integrity and availability, these are also called as a CIA. Okay, that is, it should be achieved, CIA, it needs to be achieved in an organization. Next principle, so you can say this confidentiality, integrity and availability. So these are the basic secure system. Your system should achieve all this at minimum. Next is the authentication. Authentication means establishing proof of identity. It ensures that the origin of document or the electronic message is correctly identified. Authentication means you are being authenticated. Basic example, if you are using any banking application, so you need to be authenticated, but you need to enter your username, you need to enter your password. So that is the authentication mechanism. It ensures that identity of a person trying to access those information. If any third party cannot access my banking, but if they are having my username and password, they can access. But at the maximum, they are using the username and password to authenticate the user. So over here, you can see that A entity B and C. Over here now C is posing as A and doing some kind of transaction, some kind of resource requirement. So over here there is a loss of authentication. So fabrication is possible in the absence of proper authentication. So nowadays to authenticate they are sending username, password, OTP. So all those are the authentication mechanism. Next is the non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means it prevents the denial of message content sent through a network. If sender is sending some kind of message and then it denies, later it denies that I have not sent. So it is not possible. It cannot deny. So non-repudiation does not allow the sender to deny that I have not sent the message. That is the main thing about the non-repudiation. It prevents the denial of message content through the network. So over here, non-repudiation does not allow the sender of the message to refuse the claim of not sending the message. If I am making some transaction, then I will say to the bank that I have not made this transaction. They will make an argument that you have used your username, you have used your password, you have used your transaction ID, OTP, so you have made. So these kind of all techniques are the non-repudiation. So once you have made some kind of changes, argument, requirement, you cannot later refuse that I have not made this. So that is a non-repudiation. Next is the access control. Access control means is determined by role management and rule management. Who can access what kind of data? If a database is there, user is there. All user cannot access one kind of data. Some are been privileged to just view, some are privileged to update, some are privileged to grant privileges. Okay, so even in a system, even in the organization, everyone cannot access everything. So which user can access what kind of resources is managed by the access control. Okay, so I hope that you have understood about the principle of security. Confidentiality means, what do you understand by confidentiality? Only the intended sender and receiver should get the content of the message. Integrity means content of the message should not be changed. Availability means resource should be available all the time. Authentication means it is going to establish proof of identity. Non-repudiation, you cannot later deny that I have not sent this message. And access control means who have access what kind of data. I hope you understood my lecture. Thank you for watching. Kindly like, share and subscribe to my